So you finally decided it's time to update your church website. You went onto YouTube and you watched the tutorials only to find out you have no idea what actually goes on your church website homepage. What sections do you need? What order should they go in? And most of all, how do you actually connect with first-time visitors to your website so that they turn into first-time visitors at your church on a Sunday morning? And here's what I found. If you just wing it, you're gonna miss key elements that are very important to first-time visitors. So what most churches do is just wind up copying whatever other churches are doing out there. Well, my friend, you don't have to waste one more second staring at a blank screen, because in this video, I'm gonna break down for you the exact formula that I've used at my church and have helped hundreds of other churches use to get the best results out of your church website homepage. And here's the thing, it actually helps more website visitors turn into first-time guests. Let's do this. Well, hey guys, I'm Thomas here from REACHRIGHT, and I want to share a number with you, 7,269. That's the number of website strategy reviews that myself and my team here have done over the last 5 years for churches that are looking to make improvements on their church website. And in these reviews, we have done a deep dive into what exactly is working, from the look and feel to graphics to homepage layouts. And we take a deep dive on some of the analytics as well, and things like what we can do on the website to make those first-time visitors even more sticky. So my goal in this conversation is to give you some ideas that are both data-backed and fueled by years of experience to help you get a better church website homepage. And in these reviews, we've uncovered what I think is a shocking truth. And in our opinion, only about 12% of church websites are good enough at helping website visitors turn into first-time visitors on Sundays. But the good news is that 7 specific homepage sections on a typical church website will lead to much higher conversion rates. And by that, I mean the number of people that go from a looker to someone that's actually interested in visiting. And maybe you think that that free review would be helpful for your church. Well, if so, I'm gonna leave a link down in the description where you can be our next church to get that free website strategy review. I really hope you take advantage of it. So let's get down to business and start with the first section that every church website homepage should lead with, and that is what we call the hero section. Now, a hero section is usually that main above the fold section when someone first gets onto your church website, and it usually has 3 main components: a graphical component, a textual component, and a call to action. And remember that we're gonna talk about calls to action quite a bit in the rest of this conversation, but let's start with the graphical component. What we wanna see is a big video background. This is usually best when it's made up of B-roll footage of life happening at your church. The way we say it here at REACHRIGHT is you want video of people caught in the act, living out the values of your church. What we don't want are things like pictures of empty buildings and chairs without people in them, because let's face it, the people are what attract other people to your church. Some of my favorite things to catch on video are baptisms and people being greeted in the foyer of your church, maybe people praying or people writing notes in their Bibles. All of these kinds of candid shots really help people catch what your church is all about. And as a companion to that, it's great to have some kind of a textual element in that hero section. This is usually just a few words that really capture what your church is all about. At my church, for instance, ours says, "Every heart, every home, alive in Christ." It's short, it's impactful, and for us, it's made a really good impact. Spend some time workshopping this and make sure you get the terms right. One pro tip on this is make sure that it has an outward focus and not just an inward focus. You don't want to just tell people about who you are as a church, but tell them what they gain from being a part of your church family. Now, I understand that in some ways that's antithetical to the gospel. It's not about what's in it for me, but from a marketing perspective, especially with people that are not yet a part of your organization, helping them connect the dots on how they can fit in at your church is really what the main goal is at this point. And finally, like I said, you want a very clear call to action in this hero section. Now, my favorite call to action is typically a plan your visit button, where someone would be redirected to a form they can fill out where they can let you know that they're coming for a first-time visit. With that, you'll answer some of their frequently asked questions and do a better introduction to someone that's brand new to your church. But a plan your visit button really makes it abundantly clear for a first-time visitor that this is where they're supposed to go next. The next section you want to be sure to hit is the welcome message. And this is ultra simple. Really, in my view, the simpler the better. What we're looking for is a very organic and authentic video of your lead pastor talking a little bit about why someone should come out and visit this Sunday. Usually we like to see these in vertical format because they're really easy on the eye for people, and anybody that's on TikTok or Instagram Reels is used to seeing this format. And like I said, what the goal is here is just to be really authentic and introduce someone to your church. Two things to remember as you're doing this is that visiting a church for the first time for someone can be a little bit scary. Maybe answer some of those questions that maybe you would be wondering if you were visiting for the first time. And another thing to remember is that the main reason why people choose a church is because they feel a connection with the lead pastor. Now, most of the time that happens during sermons and people can relate to you when you're preaching, but if we can pull that forward into this welcome video by creating a connection with you as the pastor, well, that's all the better. After the welcome video, you want to outline your next steps process on your homepage. This section is usually made up of 3 or 4 different squares where you highlight with photography what someone's next step might be as they're getting connected to your church. What do I recommend for those squares? Well, ask yourself this question: what does a fully committed member of our church look like? If you're like most churches, it probably means that someone attends regularly on a Sunday, they are part of a group of some kind, maybe they serve in some capacity at your church, and they're probably givers when the offering plate comes by. Well, these are the same kind of things you want to invite people to take a step towards on your homepage. I'd recommend these 4 areas: a new here square, which would redirect someone to your new members class or whatever you do to help new people get assimilated; a join a group square that invites someone to take a step and join some kind of a group, whether you do life groups or small groups or home groups, whatever you call them there. Inviting people to see some of these small group opportunities at your church is a great use of this space. Then I'd invite you to have a square where people can say they want to get involved with some kind of service. Now, obviously, you're not going to invite people onto your worship team or to lead small groups after their first visit. But I think for most churches, inviting people to take some kind of a step in getting involved at the church is an appropriate first step. I know at my last church, we had a laundry love ministry where we would take over laundromats in our community. And I found that new members to our church loved to be a part of this ministry and just being able to go out there and rub shoulders with people that were really in need. So these kinds of opportunities are really great assimilation tools. And then finally, I think a square for giving is really appropriate in this spot here. We don't want to make giving the primary focus of our homepage. I wouldn't make it a big deal, but having it as one of 4 squares in the next step section seems appropriate. After the next step section, we find that an event section is your best bet. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I see with church event sections is you just have too many events. You don't need to list every single one of your opportunities to get involved with something at your church on this homepage event section. Yes, you're going to have a calendar on an inside page of your church website, but for this homepage event section, we recommend having only the most important church events that almost everybody in your church can be a part of. Think things like all church events or big men's or women's ministry events. These kinds of things are what you want to invite people to, and you want to stay away from things like weekly gatherings for committee meetings. See, these are things that a first-time visitor doesn't have a lot of interest in, but they would be interested in something like a big women's gathering that's coming up at your church. So make sure you tailor those events on your event section to get the best results. The 5th section is going to be a sermons or messages section. Now, if you're like most churches, you're probably doing video of every Sunday service at this point, at least the sermon portion. And the best place to put that is onto your church website. And what we recommend here is not every message you've preached, but just your most recent message being in the sermon section on the homepage. From there, you're going to have a call to action that goes deeper into your sermon archive, where if someone wants to see some of your past sermons, they can unpack those there. But on the homepage, we really recommend just one sermon, whatever the most recent one is, and make sure you have some kind of a graphic that goes over the top of it. Now, there's a few strategies on this. If you're the kind of church that does series graphics for every series you're in, those can be great. If not, I think just a smiling picture of your pastor's face that's engaging is a great cover image to have for that weekly video. Why does this matter? It's because our data suggests that people that watch a sermon online are 4 times more likely to visit you in person than someone that doesn't. If we can pull that forward and have them experience a little bit of life at your church before they show up for the first time, the odds of them sticking as a part of your church family go through the roof. After the sermon section, and to be honest, probably my favorite part of every church website homepage is a community stories section. And in this section, we want to fill it with stories, preferably video stories, of people that have had their lives changed by the ministry that you're doing at your church and the work of Jesus in their lives. Now, you can do text stories with a picture of the person, but there really is nothing more powerful than someone sharing their story with someone else in video format here. These don't have to be long or intricate. I think authenticity is what really matters here. I'd say shoot for about 30 seconds to 1 minute for each testimony, and I'd try to get 3 testimonies so you can have it laid out nicely on that homepage there. And what we've seen is if someone gets on there and watches some of those testimony videos, their odds of showing up on a Sunday are much higher. If you need help shooting the videos, we actually did a whole video on how to get testimony videos and shoot them the right way. I'll put a link to that right up here, and it'll also be down in the description. As for the call to action in this community stories section, well, this is another chance for you to include that plan your visit button that goes to that same page. Use different words on the button, but you just want to make sure your visitors do not miss an opportunity to get connected even before they show up on a Sunday. Then the final section, and every church website needs to have this, is a connection section. It's where people go to fill out a simple contact form and let you know who they are, if they have any questions, and just try to get connected at your church. In this, you're going to make sure you have all of your normal name, address, and phone number. These things are really important for local search engine optimization. But beyond that, it's just a spot for you to give people the details about who you are as a church and how they can get connected. And one thing you absolutely must have in this section is your service times. Make sure someone knows how to get there and when to show up on a Sunday morning. I love to put a map in this section, so if someone wants to figure out their route and start to plan ahead, they can zoom out a little bit and figure out how to get there. But really, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just make sure you have this section on your homepage. Now, maybe you're thinking, as we've talked about this, that feels like a really long homepage. Well, that's intentional. Remember, we live in this time now where people are used to scrolling through content to find what they're looking for. Think about an Instagram feed or the way we scroll through TikTok just by swiping up. Well, the same thing applies to a church website, and 7 sections that we talked about here is not too long, and we find by looking at heat maps that a lot of people are going all the way down to the bottom to learn more about your church. Also, it's important to remember that most people are going to interact with your church website not on a computer, but on a smartphone. So remember, we typically use smartphones by scrolling and not by going from page to page to page. A lot of church websites are caught in the past where you put your contact information and all of your sermons all on individual pages. And we've just found that while those pages are still valuable, having all of that information on the homepage and a great mobile experience is really important. Now, these 7 sections are not just things that my team and I made up here. It's things that we've learned through all of the research we've done on what's actually working according to the analytics on church websites. If this has been helpful to you, it would mean a lot to me if you would hit the subscribe button down below. But maybe as you were watching this, you realized that my homepage isn't really my problem. It's just I don't get enough people watching my videos on YouTube. Well, you're in luck. We actually did a video where we analyzed the top 100 church YouTube accounts, and we found out what's working for them and what will work for you as well. I think that's the next best video for you to watch.